Hello, thanks for tuning in to my official YouTube channel. I'm Reverend MeeLing, Reverend Susan MeeLing, Lady MeeLing, Lady Dori Belle. I've been known by a few names, quite a few. So today I spoke with an individual and he and I were speaking. And towards the end of meeting, he had discussed certain aspects in regards to a more you can see me closer sort of thing. And so, thank you for that. It's a little bit to get accustomed to seeing that close up in person. So I guess the irony is the benefit that I forget things all the time. So seeing how starting over, essentially, that pretty much means I have plenty of stuff to rediscuss at a closer angle. And so, irony of ironies. And so, thank you. So, I was discussing various stuff with the guy, and he and I talked about different things. He gave me his points of view in different things, and it was a back and forth discussion, And one of the things we discussed was my Medal of Honor art project. That whole thing. You can go to my website and look at all the different things that I've done. You can go through my website, www.susanmeeling.com, and you can click on the links to purchase the different books that I authored and put together and stuff. And you can also go to read my journal blog entry, the Ornery PSA. I'm a little ornery, I don't deny that. And so in regards of my Medal of Honor art project, I had discussed, as I've discussed before with certain individuals, and came up with a couple of there's a particular book that I wrote, the Modern Day book by Reverend Susan MeeLing, that discusses different aspects in regards to defining and giving various examples to assist lawmakers in regards to various aspects of defining terrorism for a specific set of examples in the physical, mental, emotional, sexual, and spiritual aspect. Having that combined in this era because of the ability to videotape, record the GPS stuff, banking systems and payments and so on and so forth. So not just in reference to my Medal of Honor art project as far as the book is concerned, but also some other experiences, whether it was discussions or it was things that I had actually gone through. And so in such, one of the things that I've had as far as a lack of understanding is, well, first off, I just genuinely do not understand how anybody could be disrespectful to any cemetery location. That's a personal thing as far as like spirituality and respect. That's first. Second, I have absolutely no ability to understand how anybody could think that it would be a good idea to cause problems to my Medal of Honor art project, specifically in reference to the cemetery in Seattle at the Evergreen Washelli area, where I spent hours and hours cleaning up dog poop off of 6 of the barkers. And I still, in reference to 2000 17 in regards to that traffic backup because of that red Hyundai in Montana when doing the drop-offs for that state. Irony that it's called the Treasure State, or the State Treasure, something like that. And then that Montana Vortex location and a few other things. And then there's that cutie patootie Navy SEAL. That's apparently from there. Um, uh, Nonetheless, in reference to my Medal of Honor art project, the reality is there are so few individuals who earned the Medal of Honor. Realistically, I don't even know what the percentage would be. I did have that head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. So, numbers are an issue. Nonetheless, in regards to that, there are less than, I don't think there's even 10,000 Medal of Honor recipients who earned a Medal of Honor. And as many soldiers throughout all of the United States of America's armed forces, they all earned what they earned, whichever branch. Again, thank you for your service. In the United States of America's Army, Air Force, Coast Guard, Marine Corps, Navy, and there's now the Space Force. I don't think there's, what I found online is that there was like 3,100 maybe in total. And so I have a feeling that might be an issue as far as number-wise. That being said, there is one female in the entire history of the United States of America that earned a Medal of Honor. There's only one. And over the years, I have tried to explain to various individuals how much it actually takes to be a female in the armed forces. Not just, not in the way that in a more, not in a way of which most would understand. And so I tried explaining that to people over the years and giving different references as far as not just my own experience, but others, to try to educate in ways to bring more awareness and understanding that, yes, female equality is important. There is no denying that. However, if you're going to go and complain, yes, there are genuine, legitimate aspects which to complain about. When you look at the civilian sector, in comparison to military, law enforcement, fire department, and EMS, females, while they do have certain equal rights, the aspects of having to prove yourself in the armed forces, especially the armed forces, whatever branch, it does take quite a bit extra. There has been quite a lot of progress, realistically. However, first I'm going to clarify before I go on, I do not believe that there should be females intermixed with males for infantry, combat arms, special forces, or the like. I cannot be the only one who would agree with that. With who our current enemy is, in reference to other areas of the world that don't necessarily follow the Geneva Convention. I actually explained this earlier, that there are males who have survived being a POW, a prisoner of war. And those males that are still alive could very much explain that what they went through, what they survived, they would genuinely be able to explain why there would be a very good reason not to have females in that particular field. I'm not saying that females can't do infantry, but doing it in combined with males, not comparing the males in that regard, but making sure that the focus is on the mission instead of other aspects. And that goes for combat arms, so on and so forth. However, special forces, that is where I believe that females could. But if they were captured, that is, not that I want our, meaning the United States of America, any of our guys, I don't want that, obviously. But if you were going to think about what would occur in comparison, there are males who could very much describe what they went through. If you actually look at like Senator McCain and what he had survived when being a POW, think about that in that time frame and know that it would be worse for females. It would be, because, well, there is a Me Too movement, so do the math. Not being rude, just pointing that out. So there is one female Medal of Honor recipient, and she had earned her Medal of Honor during the Civil War. This is how far the armed forces, in realistic standards, has moved from that particular century to this particular time of 1 June 2020, by the way, where females can make reports and explain themselves, and the repercussions are not what they once were. So the female Medal of Honor recipient, the only one at this point in time, is named Dr. Mary Walker Edwards. And she actually was a doctor. So think about in the Civil War era how difficult it was to be a doctor as a female. She was acknowledged by the United States of America's armed forces, specifically the Army branch, for being a doctor. She had to fight her way up, not just in the medical field, but also in the armed forces to be acknowledged as such. Then, during the Civil War, she had fought in certain areas alongside, while also being the equivalent of a combat medic, but as a doctor, so able to do certain things at the exact same time while being under fire. Then, in multiple locations, by the way, multiple locations, she had done that. Then, there was a point in time where she was close to the Mason-Dixon line. She got captured. She was a POW. During the Civil War, she was a POW in the South because she was living in and started from the New York area. So she was part of the Union fighting against the Confederacy. And so think about the fact that during the Civil War, in that century, when it was then President Abraham Lincoln, look up the Geneva Convention and the rules of engagement and see the dates and compare. Do that research. Dr. Mary Edwards Walker was a POW before the Geneva Convention laws. So, again, you can research what Senator John McCain had survived, among many others who survived being a prisoner of war. And they are males. Dr. Mary Edwards Walker, female. Those aspects, not the exact same, but very much similar. However, when the Confederate Army found out she was a doctor, well, that changed everything for her. That changed how she was treated while still being a prisoner of war. And because she was able to actually then get actual food and actually get better quarters and so on and so forth, as she did as she had to do in order to survive, she then was able to send word to the Union Army to let them know that she was a POW. I don't know if they called them POWs or prisoners of war back then, but nonetheless, they had her. And so when it was feasible, and then President Abraham Lincoln was able to get with the leaders and the generals and so on and so forth at the time, they sent out the troops to go get her, to go retrieve her from where she was being held captive. And after getting her to safety, they had assessed her medical and stuff like that. And then after a little while, she earned the Medal of Honor because of everything that she not just survived, but also had done. So in reference to the individuals who caused problems for my Medal of Honor art project, whether or not you researched that there is one female Medal of Honor recipient at this point in time, and she is from the Civil War. Think about that in reference to how far our society has come, not just the civilian section, but even the United States of America's armed forces. Back then, the issue to get her awarded the Medal of Honor was because she was not enlisted nor an officer in the United States of America's armed forces. They had made the exception and made her an honorary officer because of that was the only way she could earn the Medal of Honor back then. Now you have multiple females throughout the various branches of the United States of America's armed forces. And while they aren't able to do certain jobs, in my opinion, rightfully so, I would guesstimate there's a few. And there have been female POWs, by the way, since the events of 9/11 of 2001. They would very much be able to explain why females need to be kept safe in various regards. Not saying that the males don't, I'm just saying there are certain things that they don't necessarily do to males in the exact same way as they would females. And so, Dr. Mary Edwards Walker, not only did she earn the Medal of Honor, but then she no longer had to fight for that respect because she had earned it. She had proven it over years, not just having earned her way to be an actual doctor, but all the other aspects thereof. And then you got to take into consideration there are females who were acknowledged for being a nurse during the Civil War. Now, in 2020, you have females who can enlist, who can go as chief warrant officers, who can go in as officers. And so while, yes, there are certain issues here and there, certain things that need to be tweaked a little bit, in comparison to, I don't know how long ago the Civil War was. However, whatever year that was, century, whatever. Look at how far our country has come in the United States of America. Look how far the treatment of not just civilians, but even the individuals in the armed forces for the United States of America has come. And personally, I don't disagree with the individuals who have gone through special forces training. I've actually said this long before I ever heard any male who went through special forces training say that, no, that's not something that they need to be doing. It is a reality. I'm not saying that they can't achieve that sort of strength in any way. However, that would be wasted time and wasted money when you think about it, because they wouldn't be able to go and utilize those particular skills. However, I will say, if in reference of the special forces training for females were to be utilized in regards to the Space Force, I could see that very much being beneficial in that regard in comparison to, you know, the other aspects. And so, in regards of my Medal of Honor art project, whether or not it was known that other people knew that there's only one female Medal of Honor recipient up to this point in time, that realistically isn't nearly as important in regards to you still caused problems to my Medal of Honor art project. And you still put dog poop on 6 Medal of Honor recipients markers in Seattle, Washington. And while Seattle and Tacoma are democratically more in that regard, it's not the entire state of Washington that is Democrat in that regard, or I should say more liberal in that regard. And if you actually look at historical standards, it was the Democrats at those times who were the Confederates, who were fighting for slavery, who were fighting to keep that going. Whereas it was the Republicans who fought to limit government while also abolishing slavery. So I have said, I'm not the only one who said this, in regards to if you don't learn from history, you are going to repeat it. And those who have learned from history will be there to watch and see. So hopefully in this era, that gets rectified and repaired and fixed for the betterment in that regard. But yes, there is one female Medal of Honor recipient, and her Medal of Honor was rescinded at one point in time and then re-awarded to her. Shouldn't have ever been rescinded. think about it. However, there was a situation with understanding in that regard. But she did technically have two. She had two of them. Because she gave the piece of paper in and said, here you go. You want to take my medal? I'm keeping my medal. You can have the piece of paper. I'm going to keep my medal. Really, really, really liked her aspects, because there was also a news report done in reference to her when she was first awarded the Medal of Honor. And one of the reporters that had asked her, why do you wear men's clothing? And her response was, I don't wear men's clothing. They're mine. I'll wear what I want. And I was like, yes. That's what I'm talking about. So, little ornery, wasn't she? And so, before I end this particular official YouTube broadcast, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to my official channel. Of course, this right here, right? And having talked about my Medal of Honor art project, oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, save us, that star-spangled banner yet wave, for the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you, and have a good one. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel.